Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, obesity is finally being addressed as a huge problem in the UK, given that we have a socialised health service. And the fun thing about that is, of course, it runs counter to the idea of not being able to fat shame somebody. And from personal experience, and I'm sure you either have personal experience or know people who have, that fat shaming is actually bloody effective. And as Bill Burr has pointed out, the comedian, that one of the most effective fat-shaming experiences is to have a full-length mirror, or at least half-length because of how mirrors work. But nonetheless, that being able to see your whole body, and then if you see yourself naked, then you can see yourself in all your glory or lack thereof, and you can fat-shame yourself. That Bill Burr himself called himself a fat tub of fuck, I believe. And it's very true that sure that the scales show you a certain number, but for humans and people it's easy to just disregard that number and say, yeah, well, you don't know if it's body fat or if it's muscle or if it's bones or if it's water weight, who cares? And then you can use calipers, but again it could be water weight and bloating, and DEXA scans, they're a bit too difficult to receive, in which case, it's just a number at the end of the day. BMIs aren't completely accurate, and actually, yes, they are helpful for 90-95% of the population. You actually have to be quite elite to be shown as overweight as far as BMI is concerned, and yet not be overweight from a health perspective. So, good luck with that. So yeah, BMI essentially is actually quite accurate, unless you're a serious athlete. So yes, BMI isn't perfect, but for the vast majority of people, it does work. In other words, it's good enough. But yes, obesity, much to the chagrin of people like Bernie Sanders, who say breadlines are a good thing, because it avoids things like this. That is actually the greater context in him saying that breadlines are a good thing, and it's definitely worth seeking that out so you understand his point. But given that we are in a country which subsidizes sugar because of the outdated and incorrect food pyramid model, which of course puts carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, bread and grains and that kind of thing, at the bottom of the food pyramid, again because of subsidies, it then of course encourages inflammation and then secretion of insulin, which causes not only weight gain but in particular fat gain, because insulin is essentially the key to unlock the fat cells for storage to take place. Why is the food pyramid like that? Well, because of lobbying. So again, it is government mandated instructions which are incorrect. And just as a bit of a history lesson, the FDA's, the RDA's rather, as in the recommended daily amount of whatever it might be, the macros or the micros or the calories that you might see, that is 2,000 for women, 2,500 for men, and then they suggest a certain amount of fat, carbohydrate and protein as your daily amount, and sugar and salt and all that good stuff. That is based off of World War II rations, that they basically went, okay, cool, so at the outbreak of the Second World War, they need to decide what to give their soldiers, of course. How do they decide that? Well, they essentially just do a survey and understand what people are eating and go, well, that seems to work, so that is the recommended daily amount. And that's been pretty much the same since the Second World War. Understanding, of course, that people have changed their jobs and understandings of nutrition have changed, and what goes into foods, in that micronutrients also have an effect as opposed to just macronutrients. It would definitely help to make such a change, but the government and their mandates is always behind what the latest research shows. So if you actually want to understand what is best for you, then you need to do two things. One is research, and the other is experiment on your own body. in order to understand how your body reacts to different macro and micronutrients. And unfortunately, the government can't actually tell you that. But the British Heart Foundation are suggesting that they can. So, they say, obesity is worse than smoking. Weight problems cause more deaths from heart conditions than puffing tobacco, study suggests. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a little bit misleading. Little bit. In terms of what is readily available and what people prefer to do. That, of course, we see consumption of sugar much higher than consumption of tobacco. If you were to swap out sugar for tobacco, then you could easily reverse this. So it is essentially just that smoking is on the decrease, which is definitely a good thing. However, sugar is on the increase, and that's definitely a bad thing. And for all those wondering, what kind of diet am I supposed to do? 2 bits of advice. One is natural or whole foods, and the other is very simple, which is just aim to be healthy. Yeah, I know it is actually that easy. That sure, you might have things that you think are correct but aren't, but if you actually follow one of these diet plans and stick with it, same as with exercise regimens, then it's gonna work for you, but you actually have to stick with it. What that means is it isn't a diet, it's actually a lifestyle. Whether that be whole grains, and therefore you're still having things which could be inflammatory, or whether that be ketogenic, whatever it might be, a diet isn't going to work for you, but a change in lifestyle will. And that is the important thing, that forget about diets. Do not diet. You got to find a way that you can make a sustainable change in your lifestyle. That is the only way you're going to enact a positive change. And that is what you need to do. So, do it. It's as simple as that. Whether that be eating little and often, or whether that be intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, whatever it might be, whatever works for you, then go ahead. Sure, there might be perfect ways to do it if you have the discipline and motivation in order to adhere to such regimens, but if you don't, then just find the best one for you and go with that. If you find a way to enjoy salads, then eat salads all throughout the day, instead of worrying about the effects of intermittent fasting and the positive effects that has on your brain. If you find that you can't maintain energy by fasting, then eat little and often if you really like salad. Go ahead, get your micronutrients in through leaves. Why not? That's gonna work for you. In fact, I knew a guy, just as an aside, who really got into Greek salads. He just really liked them. He wasn't craving other foods because he was really enjoying what he was eating, because he really liked Greek salads for a few months, and that was essentially all he was eating. And he told me that the in-laws, his wife's family, were speaking to his wife and were concerned that he had an eating disorder or anorexia or maybe bulimia or something like that, because he was losing a lot of weight very quickly, and they were concerned about his mental health and why he was losing weight so quickly. And she very sensitively posited that to him, and then he kind of realised that, oh yeah, he has been losing weight. Not on purpose, but just because he really liked Greek salads. So sometimes, if you're lucky, losing weight can be a lot easier than you think. But, of course, it does actually take the mental fortitude in order to study and understand what you might like to eat. So, yeah, how about take an experimental week, fortnight, or month in order to see what it is that you like eating? Also, as another aside, nicotine tends to be an appetite suppressant, which might be why you don't see so many fat smokers. It could also be because they die younger because of comorbidities, which is a popular phrase now. But either way, you either die earlier, so you're not seen as a fat smoker, or it works as an appetite suppressant, and therefore you're not fat. either one works, doesn't it? But I think we can all agree at this point that you should get off of sugar, as it is more addictive than cocaine. So let's get on to the British Heart Foundation, as they said that 85 people are losing their lives each day because their excess fat leads to conditions such as heart attack or stroke. Wow. So 2/3 of all adults in the UK are now overweight or obese. More than 15 million are obese out of 67 million people. So if you're wondering why it is difficult to find a mate, if you're actually a self-respecting adult, then this would definitely go a part of the way to that. Because if somebody is overweight or obese, that shows two things which makes them an unattractive partner. One is that they lack self-discipline, and the other is that they lack the ability to research information. Because they might be disciplined and doing what the government says, but then they don't have the individual thought to make them a worthwhile partner, and that's why they're fat. Or they might have individual thought and understand what the government is doing wrong, but don't have the personality in order to follow through on their understandings, in which case, again, not a worthwhile partner. So it might seem harsh, but it is certainly true that if you're trying to hire somebody or to enter a romantic relationship with somebody, you do not want somebody who is overweight or obese because they have a key flaw in one of those two areas. And here is a photo of somebody here with a front bottom, as we say, which is if you just crop out this part here, it could be their backside or their front. Either way, it is utterly repulsive. I think we can all agree with that. And I doubt I'm the only one when you see somebody like, I suppose I shouldn't mention names, but they are mentioned as a fashion icon, as they have their own fashion brand, but nonetheless they are overweight. So this kind of thing is utterly repulsive to myself. It really does put you off food, because you see somebody who is overweight or obese while you're eating, and you go, oh, for fuck's sake, I do not want to end up like them. So unless I am enjoying an incredibly healthy salad, as in no dressing whatsoever, at the time, then I'm going to be put off my food, whatever it might be, because I most definitely wish to avoid that situation. And I'm sure you're similar, that when it gets to what people find offensive and what people wear, then somebody who is obese wearing something that showcases their disgusting lack of self-discipline is certainly something that I find offensive and would wish to ban if you go down that route. But instead of that, how's about we all take personal responsibility? Unfortunately, that isn't possible with a socialised health service like the NHS, given that, of course, we all have to pay for individuals' mistakes in their life choices. And if you wish to be sympathetic, then the response is, well, the government said we should do this, in which case you can't blame people for having responsibility for their own actions because the government said it. In which case, simple fix, guys, stop listening to the bloody government. I think we can all agree that the government makes mistakes. No matter where you line up on the political spectrum, we can all agree the government makes mistakes. Why? Because it's made up of people, and everybody is fallible. Nobody is perfect. No human in the entirety of human existence has ever been perfect. Right, cool. In which case, government also has imperfections. Cool. Does government understand you as well as you do? No. Do they know what is best for you as well as you do? No. Okay, cool. So, would you trust the government with your health? And some people say yes. So, would you trust them with your security? And yes, some people say yes. So, why? They do not know who you are, they do not know what you need, and therefore, if you value something, like maybe your health, your life, your security, you should not entrust that responsibility to the government, and instead, you should take personal responsibility for it. Hence, Second Amendment support. The right to keep and bear arms. But nonetheless, do your own research. I'm sorry to say that I would love to say I have all the answers, and I personally am a fan of stopping sugar and using intermittent fasting. But nonetheless, if that doesn't work for you, then find something that does. But for the love of God, actually find something that works, and stop believing the government in what they say. They are bought out through lobbyists. So even if they have the best of intentions, which the vast majority of the time they fucking do not, because, hey, power corrupts and who's more powerful than the government? Exactly. So do your own bloody research. And yet people seem to have that disconnect when they go, yeah, government makes mistakes, most certainly, and I wish they would do this way, this particular thing another way, and go, okay, cool. So you understand that they're wrong and they're fallible, and this is your particular area of expertise, and you know that they're making a mistake. Then why the hell do you trust them or believe in them when they say something else? Given that the only thing you're skillful at, you can see that the government is wrong. So given that they've got 0 for 1 on the thing that you know about, why the hell do you give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to something else? You shouldn't. Actually use your particular critical reasoning skills in whatever specialised field that you have in order to understand and further research in another field which is actually important to you. I'm sorry to say that there isn't somebody else there to do it for you, but if it is meaningful to you, if it is important to you, then you will find a way in order to garner the truth and understand what the best source of action is for you given your situation. And that is it. So what the British Heart Foundation has to say, which is, oh, well, you know, sugar adverts are very effective on children, and therefore we should ban them before 9 p.m. You go, well, how about parents actually have responsibility for their children? What a radical thought! That maybe, just fucking maybe, if we thought families are important, and parents should have responsibilities for their children, instead of passing it on to the state, then we might have a better society. Perhaps then we wouldn't have so many broken homes and children coming from divorced parents and single-parent households, which of course is the greatest predictor in delinquent behaviour, not finishing school, ending up in prison. And maybe, if we said parents should take more responsibility for their actions, and we encouraged nuclear families, which would make a lovely change from modernity, and actually return to tradition which was there for a fucking reason, then we wouldn't have so many issues. So no, British Heart Foundation, I do not give a shit in the government mandating what we can and cannot see. No, instead, it is down to individuals. And if individuals cannot be held responsible for their own actions, then why the fuck are you suggesting that the NHS should exist? Because if you're saying that people cannot be held responsible, then you should not be giving them that safety net, to whether that be social welfare or the Nationalised Health Service, which is a socialised system in and of itself, in order to provide for them. And no, I do not care about, oh, there's increased tax on tobacco and alcohol, in which case there should be on sugar as well. No, funnily enough, you wouldn't actually need an increased tax on sugar in order to dissuade people from buying sugar if you actually got rid of the fucking subsidies which are there in the first place. Simple fix. Oh yeah, remove subsidies, and then you got a free market result. And then actually allow people to access this information instead of being bought out by fucking lobbyists trying to put their grains at the bottom of the food pyramid. You happy days. Easy as that. Simple solution, get rid of the fucking government. What does that mean? Remove the NHS as well. Yeah, because that's an extension of the government. And actually have people taking personal responsibility for their lives. And the bloody brilliant thing about that is that that means you have to make it more individual and more down to the community level. So if somebody is bitching about not receiving their payout from just bloody existing, then they actually have to turn to their local community and try and explain their situation and garner sympathy and support and an investment in order to be able to have that subsidy to live. Which, of course, encourages much better behaviour. Perhaps they will never be a contributing member of society when it comes to ploughing fields, but just their very essence in that they're positive and motivating, that more almost intellectual endeavour makes them a worthwhile member of society, and therefore people are happy to help them out because they always make them feel better. So yeah, there are actual things that, given that we're humans and that we understand the consequences of our actions and we can actually plan for the future, that you can have these intellectual endeavours, even if it is just somebody who is uplifting and motivating, without providing any particular thing of physical substance like growing a carrot or being a turnip farmer, that they can actually still have value. So there you go. That is the simple fix, the easy fix, and removes the inefficiencies that exist at the moment. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think that the decrease in people smoking isn't actually having that much of an effect and therefore obesity is more of an issue? Or if you think, yeah, the government should step in because the government should protect everybody and therefore they should ban sugar adverts? Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you have to say. And of course, as always, until next time, have a good one.